on some music and let's start our practice. We're going to begin in a standing position, placing the feet underneath the hips or even a little wider if that makes you feel a little more stable. We're going to be doing our opening breath here. Maybe just kind of rock back and forth, make sure that we feel nice and stable. Lift the toes, then put them down one by one, kind of like the keys of a piano. So we've got a nice stable base here as we start to breathe. Let's give those shoulders a good roll. And then we're going to take our hands and place them on the belly so that we have a way to monitor that we're really moving with our breath, that our inhale is expanding the belly, feeling our inhale and our exhale. And let's start to inhale and exhale fully. And then let all of the breathing start to happen at the nose. And as we breathe, we're going to use our imagination a little bit here. We're going to keep the hands on the belly as we breathe. But with your mind, I want you to imagine inhaling for a count of 4, moving in a straight line, pausing, moving down like a rectangle on the side, and then we'll go across the bottom of that rectangle with a 4 count exhale. Pause as we come up. So we're creating this imaginary rectangle. Inhaling a count of 4, pausing as we go down, exhaling a count of 4, pausing as we come up. Continue to breathe like this, making sure that we feel that belly move as we practice breathing. And I want to talk to you about Psalm 23. Psalm 23 up to this point has been full of personal pronouns. David has talked to us about his shepherd. He says, my shepherd. And he says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores me, my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And then everything changes. Instead of David talking out here, telling us about his shepherd, his gaze lifts when he starts to talk about the valley of the shadow of death. And he recognizes God as his protector. He says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. He continues to talk to God as this psalm continues to be a prayer, recognizing themes of justice. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And then he says, you anoint my head with oil in this prayer to God. There might be a little bit of a disconnect for us in our culture about that, but this meant a lot to David. For David, this was sort of like him praying, God, I can't believe how far you have brought me in this life. Because David, as a young boy, was a shepherd. Oil was used by shepherds to treat the wounds of their sheep and also to help keep insects and pests away from them. So a shepherd was never without his oil. It was extremely important. Fast forward just a little bit, David was still young, and the prophet Samuel comes to David's house looking for a new king, and he anoints David's head, literally with oil. So David has this memory of being anointed with oil, and he's looking back on his life because we think that Psalm 23 was probably written towards the end of his life, thanking God for where he's brought him. He also says, my cup overflows. He's giving a prayer of gratitude to God for all the blessings that he has received. And then the psalm closes out with David expressing his faith in the future. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let's inhale, bringing those arms overhead, and then let's take our gaze high, coming into a prayer ourselves, prayer of adoration to our shepherd, our protector, our God of justice, our provider, praising God for who he is. And now taking that spine to neutral, let's start to warm up the spine a little bit, reaching up directly over the shoulder with the left side on an inhale, then coming down to an exhale. Inhaling up on the right, dropping back down. Every inhale, we're reaching up over that shoulder, lengthening the spine, noticing that space being created down the side of the spine. We've got a soft knee, but those feet are still plugged into the ground, giving us a nice foundation here. Still inhaling and exhaling deeply as we move, as we warm up. It's one movement, one breath. And we want to allow that breath to create our pace here. I'm talking a lot, so my pace is probably a little bit faster than yours is. Really focus on the breath and then let that movement follow. Now let's sink those hips back, drawing the hands in front of us on Jali Mudra, which is a prayerful pose, noticing that heat between the hands. Once again, we want that firm foundation. If this is hard on the knees, just come up a little bit. We want to make sure those knees don't cross over the toes at all. And let's come into a time of prayer for Thanksgiving. Thinking, my cup runs over. What are the blessings that you are counting today? Thank our shepherd for them. And now we're going to lift, keeping the hips forward, but rotating behind us with the belly button, followed by the chest and our gaze, and then sinking back into chair. One movement, one breath as we begin to flow between chair and a standing rotation. Maybe this feels good to lift our hands higher, very prayerful, but maybe that bothers our shoulders and we want to keep it down. Your choice. Remember to keep those hips forward so that we can really maximize the warm-up that we're getting to the spine here in this rotation. Noticing everything, fighting dementia by keeping our mind engaged as we move. Noticing the feet plugged into the earth, noticing the heat between the hands, noticing the strength of the legs as we push those hips back. Now we can come into mountain, soft knees. What we're going to do here is a moving meditation. If you've ever worked with children, you know that one way that you help children to learn things is to add motions and movements. So we're going to do that. We've got a little flow that we're going to do here. This is the last session on Psalm 23. So I really want to get it into our brains, the psalm itself. So we're going to have those feet underneath of the hips. Let's make sure that foundation is good there. Then we're going to open up the chest, drawing those arms out for some back extension. Then we're going to round the back in a standing cow, kind of like we're hugging a big beach ball, or you can imagine just giving a hug to the whole world. Then we're going to draw those arms overhead, lengthening towards the ceiling as those feet are plugged into the mat, getting that dynamic tension as we stretch that body in two different directions. And then the stability of chair. Those are our 4 movements here. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're going to go through that one more time. I want us to not only think about this psalm, but really think about warming the spine here. We've already warmed it through the rotation and the lateral flexion, but notice that we are getting our extension and our flexion here. Really get that spine nice and warm. One more time. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now we can bring that spine back to neutral. We're going to come down into forward fold, stepping back with that right foot into lunge. And then we're going to take those arms halfway and put some rotation into our sun salutations today. Coming back open to the sides, drawing our hands to the mat, pushing back to down dog, coming forward to plank or modified plank, your choice. Crocodile or modified crocodile, bringing the belly all the way down to the mat, drawing those hands back to the bottom of the rib cage, lifting into up dog and back to down dog. Taking that right foot forward, lifting halfway, rotating to the right, coming back center, taking those hands to the mat with our forward fold, inhaling up, exhaling chair, circling up, forward fold. Let's step back with that left foot, coming into that rotated lunge, rotating to the right over that bent leg, coming back center, taking our hands back to the mat, pushing back to down dog. Forward to plank or modified plank, crocodile or modified crocodile, lowering the belly to the mat, taking our hands to the bottom of the rib cage, lifting into up dog, pushing back to down dog, taking that left foot forward, lifting halfway into lunge, rotating, coming back center, taking our hands to the mat, stepping it up, inhaling up, exhaling chair. Let's circle up, coming back to forward fold. Then we're going to step back with that left foot nice and far, coming into a nice wide stance for standing straddle. We can have the hands at the mat, or we can draw down to the forearms. Let's take some time here for a prayer of confession. Searching our hearts, knowing with confidence that we don't have to sit in guilt. We can let it go once that sin has been forgiven and we brought it to the shepherd who forgives us. And we can walk our hands over to that left leg. Let's get a little bit of a stretch there. And then we're going to bring all of our weight to that left leg, lifting the right one, opening up to the side. You're welcome to use a block here if you'd like, in this balancing half moon. Breathing. Foot is flexed. We're trying to get that torso open to the side of the mat. And we can drop that back foot, turning that front foot so that the toes are towards the short edge of the mat. Let's just draw our left arm overhead, feeling some more lateral flexion here. So we don't want our torso to face that leg. We want to bring our torso towards the long edge of the mat so that we're feeling that space being created down the side of the spine. Breathing. Big inhales, big exhales. We can continue with this rectangle breath. It's really a form of what we call box breath. Box breath traditionally takes an inhale of 4 and then a pause of 4 counts 2. Exhale 4 and then another pause of 4 counts. I've had some people who get dizzy with that, so I just make a quick pause. Hopefully everybody can keep from getting dizzy that way. No falling down today. And let's shift into triangle. We want to imagine that there is a wall behind us and that we're drawing that top shoulder back in contact with the wall along with the arm. We want to feel like we're drawing back that top hip towards the wall, as much of the body in contact with that wall as possible. Once we bring that torso to face down, we stop working the core here, and there should be a lot of core work happening with triangle. We're taking that left arm and pressing it against the leg. We've got soft knees, straight legs, but soft knees, never locking them out. And now we're gonna drop down that right hand. You might wanna grab a block here. If you didn't for the first one, you might for this. We're gonna lift that right leg and then open to the side, drawing up the left arm. See how much of a rotation we can get here. We're not gonna stay there long. Let's settle that leg back down. All 10 toes facing the front of the mat. Pressing the hips back, we can have our hands at the calf, the ankle, the floor. Welcome to use a block here. Head is hanging down, completely relaxed. Really different things going on between the upper and the lower body here, where the upper body is just relaxed. Abdominals and chest resting on that front leg, but the lower body should be feeling a really good stretch here of the hamstrings, the back of the leg. If you'd like to get a little bit more of a stretch here, you can activate the muscles of your quads. Opposing muscles work in a way where if you're activating the muscle of one, the opposing muscle can stretch a little bit easier. So we can take advantage of that here in pyramid. Breathing. And then let's walk our hands back to center. Settling back down into that straddle. Taking time here for prayer, again, prayer of supplication, which just means we're bringing him our requests. In Philippians, it says, don't worry about anything, pray about everything. So when we get ourselves caught up in these cycles of the mind where we're stuck worrying, stop the cycle, stop everything, just pray. And we can walk our hands towards that right foot. Getting a little different stretch here. And then we're gonna come up onto that right foot. I'm gonna grab the block so you can see how it is with the block. Lifting our left, opening up to the long edge of the mat. Breathing, trying to get that torso towards that long edge. But doing what we can here. Maybe it's too difficult to lift the leg and you just want to play with it, lowering it, raising it so that you can tap down and get a little support. Maybe it's difficult to raise the arm. We do what feels good to our body, so you could lower that arm if you'd like. Stabilizing on that standing leg. And now let's step back. Taking the toes of the right towards the short edge of the mat, lifting into exalted warrior, feeling that stretch down the side of the body on the other side. Breathing, really reaching here. Those feet are plugged in. Our warrior stances have a strong lower body stance. We are lifting with our upper body, reaching towards the opposite corner of the room. Now we can cartwheel those arms, straightening the legs, imagining that imaginary wall behind us again. Breathing. Thinking about keeping those fingertips up as far away from each other as possible. We're always thinking about what's stretching apart here. Our arms are stretching far away from us. Once again, if shoulder trouble, just drop that arm, because really drawing that torso back to our imaginary wall is where a lot of this work is going to happen in the core. Breathing. And we can take that hand down, finding that block, lifting our left leg behind us, trying to open to the other side of the mat in a rotated standing half moon. Not staying here very long, so it's a tough one. But it's okay to do tough, right? Tough does not mean insurmountable. It means we try, and today we're just kind of trying it a little bit, right? Coming back into pyramid, hands at the ankle, the calf, the floor, maybe to a block. All 10 toes facing the front of the mat, head relaxed, chest and abdominals resting on that front leg, pushing the hips back, breathing, soft knee, putting as much of a bend in our knee as we need to. You'll notice time of day really changes how deeply we can go into these poses. Right now I'm taping this pretty early in the morning, so I'm a little tight. If I did this in a couple of hours, I would probably find that I can go a little bit deeper into the pose. And now let's step that left foot up to meet the right. Slowly coming up, vertebrae by vertebrae, get a good little stretch to the back of the back there. Coming into mountains, settling in with the feet at the mat. Shoulders down, away from the ears, crown of the head lifted towards the sky. Checking in with our posture so that through our day, we'll think more about our posture because we've practiced how this should feel. Now let's come into a time of balance. We're going to stabilize on that left foot. Feeling nice and stable. Once you feel plugged into the ground, let's lift that right knee, crossing it over the left, keeping that foot flexed to protect the tissues underneath of the knee, then sitting the hips back. If this is painful, we always have options. We want to feel this in the hips, not in the knee. If you're able to do this, stay here. If you're not, we could always come here, or we could just keep the knee lifted. Your choice. The important thing here, really, as nice as it is to get that stretch of the hips, is to work on our balance. It's so easy to lose. As we age, it gets harder and harder. And it becomes more and more important because we are more prone to fall as we age, and this is going to help us with that. And let's step it out, noticing the difference between the right and the left. Lifting our right knee, crossing it over the left, keeping that foot flexed to protect the tissues under the knee, taking our hands to heart center, sinking the hips back, taking care of our knees also by just determining a depth that feels right to us. I did a little something to my knee earlier this week, so I'm going to be very careful not to go too deep. Never find a place of pain. Find a place where you do feel that strengthening, that stretch. And we can step that out. Let's inhale up, exhaling forward fold, coming down to all fours. Hands underneath of the shoulders, knees underneath of the hips. Let's do just a couple of cat-cows here. And then come into neutral. Let's lift our left leg. Then we're going to take our right arm, extending it out in front of the shoulder, reaching to just lengthen it out. Coming behind, finding the ankle of the left, and lifting into tiger. If this feels difficult, then I recommend sunbird, which just drops the hand out of this. Gets you a great glute exercise there. So sunbird or tiger, your choice. We are flexing that foot back there. Breathing, lifting. Maybe we can even feel a little bit of a stretch to our hip flexor as we lift. Chest is open. Inhaling 4, pausing, exhaling 4. And we can release this. Let's lift the right leg, extending the left arm out, reaching, drawing back, and lifting. Breathing. Using that option for sunbird if we'd like, or staying in tiger. Holding the movement, never holding the breath. And we can drop that down. Let's come into a wide knee child's pose to bring that spine back to neutral before we do a little more extension. Big toes kissing, knees wide. We can walk those hands down. We've been talking for 6 weeks about Psalm 23, about how the Lord is our shepherd and all the benefits of having him as our shepherd, that he gives us rest, leading us beside green pastures, still waters. There's a restoration of the soul when we choose to let the shepherd be our guide. But let's search our hearts. Maybe we really haven't chosen to let the shepherd be our guide. And I always like to say, at least for me, I learn it here and then I learn it here. So maybe I've decided, yeah, I want him to be. But when I look at my life, maybe he hasn't been. So let's just take a moment here, purposing if we've decided for the Lord to be our shepherd, taking a look at how we make our decisions, how we treat people, and just seeing if we're really allowing him to shepherd us. And now we're going to draw that belly towards the mat, moving into either bow or half bow. I'm just going to kick that block out of the way. Let's come into Sphinx to help us get into position so the elbows are underneath of the shoulders, lifting the heart. Now we're going to take the left foot, bring it up, flexing that foot, extending out the left arm, reaching, coming back, finding it. Now we can stay right here in half bow, or we can come into full bow by lifting that right leg, extending out the right hand, reaching back, finding, and lifting. Breathing. Now if you are in half bow, release that, and let's switch to the other side. If you're in that half bow, lift the opposite leg, reaching out with that other arm, and lifting and breathing on the other side. Getting a lot of good extension. So we open up the heart here, reversing all that damage that we do with our phones, reading books over the computer, driving, a lot of the things that I do. And we can step that back. Let's take our hands to the mat underneath of the shoulders, coming into plank just to set us up to push back to down dog, heels towards the mat, head hanging down. Breathing, tailbone lifted towards the ceiling. Let's start to extend that exhale with our breath. Still inhaling for 4, but let's exhale for a count of 6, maybe even 8. As we move into this time of deeper stretches, we're going to come into an open leg position, the straddle. But rather than hinging forward, we're going to get some lateral flexion here today. Still want a flexed foot. We're going to take the left hand, coming towards the inside of the left foot, taking our right arm, drawing it overhead, reaching towards the corner of the room. Our focus is on our spine here, thinking about the space being created down the side of the spine as we reach and breathe. Also getting a nice stretch to the hamstring here. And we can release this, taking our right hand to the inside of the right leg, reaching overhead with the left. Really reaching. Lengthening. And we can release that. Now what we're going to do is come into frog. You may want to put a little extra padding underneath of your knees. And if frog bothers you, then what I'd like you to do is choose butterfly, hinging forward with a straight back. But to come into frog, we're going to take our toes together, widening those knees, walking the hands forward. I might need to back up so I don't leave the camera. Widening those knees, coming back to our forearms, drawing the shoulders over the elbows, and then kicking our legs out so that we get a nice inner thigh stretch here. So we want to bring our hips to a place where they're in line with the knee. Once again, you can put some padding under that knee, maybe rolling up the mat, doubling it here. Maybe you need to tiptoe out a little bit to feel a stretch here, or maybe we need to tiptoe it in to feel a little less of a stretch here. We want our ankle to be directly behind the knee. So we're creating kind of a square here with the legs as we get this really good inner thigh stretch. Fingers are spread wide. Just think about, picture the rainforest frogs. Breathing, releasing. Always having that option to come into butterfly if we'd like. Soft shoulders, relaxing the jaw. And we can draw those feet towards each other, knees towards each other. Let's come onto our back. We're gonna cross the right leg over the left and come into a pigeon bridge. So then draw the foot underneath of the knee. Let's bring the hands down to a supportive position and we lift. Options here would be to come to pigeon on the floor or to come into a full bridge, your choice. So there's a little bit more strengthening going on here because one leg is taking care of all of the weight here. So gravity's gonna try a little bit harder than normal to pull us down. So we're really lifting, trying to open up that inner thigh while at the same time getting a nice stretch to the opposite hip flexor. Now if we need to, we can drop this down, but let's see if we can challenge ourselves and stay lifted. Coming into that full bridge before we come back to pigeoned bridge. Taking the left over the right, still nice and open with that hip flexor. Breathing, pressing that foot into the mat. And we can release that, coming back into full bridge if we weren't there already. Can we kind of walk the shoulders underneath of the torso? Clasping the hands underneath so that we get some extension here to the chest. Open heart. Breathing, lifting those hip flexors, pressing the feet through the mat. Strengthening the glutes and the hamstrings. Inhaling 4, exhaling, count of 6 or 8. We can release the hands, lowering vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding neutral in the back by drawing our knees in towards the chest. Once we find that neutral, let's come into our final relaxation. Maybe putting a pillow underneath of the knees if that feels good to our low back. Extending those feet out towards the corners of the mat, doing any wiggling that we need to do to find stillness. Giving ourselves permission for stillness. We've been talking about Psalm 23, where God makes us to lie down in green pastures, leads us beside still waters, restores our soul. We need times of rest. So give yourself permission for this short time of rest at the end of our practice. Taking our last purposeful breath and then just allowing our breath to become easy and natural, nothing forced. Allowing the shoulders to just sink and melt into the floor. Softening the jaw, allowing those teeth to feel loose. Softening the cheekbones. The space under the eyes, the crinkles where we smile, the space between the eyebrows, the right temple, the left temple, soft forehead, every follicle of hair resting. If there's something we're carrying today, let's just imagine releasing it. Softening the upper left arm, the upper right arm, both of the forearms, the inside of the right elbow, the inside of the left elbow, left wrist, right wrist. Anything we've been hanging on to that we don't want to hang on to anymore, like bitterness, unkindness, some habit that we just don't want to do. Imagine just releasing that out the fingertips. Noticing the strength of the rib cage, the strength of the floor underneath of us, allowing those hips to just sink. Softening the left leg, the right leg, both of the shins, both of the calves. Softness circling the left ankle, the right ankle. And any last bit of tension, just leaving the feet. Now we can reach those arms overhead like we're waking up in the morning, maybe wiggling the fingers and the toes. Drawing in the feet, coming to a seated position.